welcome back to the Battle of Gettysburg. Doing something a little bit different this time. I pre-recorded the video and I'm doing the audio afterwards so that I can speed everything up to 2x. This will fast forward us through a lot of sections that are just going to be me sitting and targeting artillery. So my initial setup is I'm bringing in a sniper to spot and 2 units of artillery. Specifically, one of them doesn't have the cover and stealth perk, so I don't want to have to try and move across the field where you get shot, so I deploy him first. And my goal is to kill off the Union battery on the ridge. Note that if that battery has the stealth perk or randomly spawns with it, you won't be able to see it, so you basically have to restart if you want to use this approach. So I've front-loaded all of my best artillery so that they should be arriving first, and I can just set them in the woods here and start taking everything out that I can see. The reason I do this is under optimal conditions you can kill off multiple artillery batteries before advancing forward, and you can, like usual, you could just send massive infantry forward and take the ridge and then go from there, but then you're fighting across open ground a lot of the way and taking fire from artillery that you can't see, so you just end up taking more losses than you really need to. And you really do have quite a bit of time, so I just set up here and kill off what I can, and then once the northern reinforcements come in, that's what I use to actually take all the victory points. So another thing to note is that I brought in 24 units in this corps as opposed to 20. That's because the deployments are percentage based, and I'm not sure if it's a bug or not because it doesn't seem to always happen in every battle. But while the percentages add up to 100%, they seem like they calculate off of the remaining units in the corps. So let's say you get to that last set of reinforcements, it's supposed to bring in the last 7 units, and it's I think it's a 0.6 or something like that, but you only have like 8 units left. So, or no, it's not 0.6, it's like 0.3, 0.2. Either way, you end up with you get like 2 units when you should be getting like 6. But you'll notice here that normally if you only bring 20, you'd only get 4 units at this stage, and I'm getting an extra unit because I brought in additional men. So that's going to be a feature of this battle, and it's why I'm not really showing the camp phases, is I have to do a lot of switching around and double checking numbers and then making sure that they actually deploy where they do. My goal is going to be to show how to do this in every single phase of the battle, so I'm going to drag it out much longer than you really need to. I probably could have won the battle 3 or 4 times throughout this and just choose not to. I'm not sure if that's, for actual play, I'm not sure if that's really the best solution. Certainly going to day 4 seems pretty questionable depending on how the earlier days go. But wanted to just show the possibilities. So you can see I've moved a skirmisher forward so I was starting to run out of targets, and this allows me to bring infantry units into range, though what I'm really looking for is I want artillery to come forward. My goal pretty much this entire battle is get rid of the Union artillery to make day 3 and day 4 as easy as possible. It turns out that doesn't really work. There's a lot of artillery that spawns on day 4 that you can't hit otherwise, but I do a pretty good job of getting all the artillery, so it makes certain phases much easier. So now I'm moving an infantry unit out because that sometimes seems to get the artillery to come more. Like, if you bring skirmishers, then you tend to get infantry. If you bring out the infantry, sometimes you get the artillery to come. So I'm also bringing the sniper around, changing my mind, using the one that needs ammo and letting the one that's fresh keep firing here. I'm going to bring the sniper around to see if I can find anything. I was going to shoot that one unit that was sitting out in the open, but this ended up working out pretty well. So one thing thing I'm doing is I'm trying to maximize collateral damage a lot of times. Like I'll try and target a unit that is in the middle of other units. This can also work if that unit's hidden. Like sometimes you can't see the skirmishers here, but you'll still inflict casualties on them, even though they're invisible. This is also why so generals can't take collateral damage. So if there's a general standing in the middle of units here, then you would normally shoot them, and you do the splash damage on everyone else and get rid of the general. So here, I noticed that there were shots coming from my right, which meant an artillery unit had moved up. So that's very nice. That doesn't always happen. So I'm going to move stuff down and start getting rid of it. Sometimes you can get luckier and some more artillery comes up. Like I've seen units come up and try and take the position that Caliph normally holds. Don't know what triggers that. So we're going to see that with, I think, Osborne here. He's going to be doing that, which is very nice. They still can't see me, and I get to get rid of the artillery. So pretty soon I'm going to start moving infantry forward. But we still have plenty of time, so we just had these units come in. And my goal is to have these units sort of hit first, along with those 2 units I have in the north, and then I will start swinging around the units on the west to the south. The advantage of doing it this way is there's a lot of free units that are wandering around that aren't in fortifications. They can respond to you. But once the retreat to Cemetery Hill phase starts, a lot of those start trying to move away instead of going after you. So it gives you a lot of freedom of movement without having to deal with the AI messing with your plans. And really my goal is to take advantage of the fortifications. So the units that are in those are basically stuck, like they don't respond to what you do at all. So it lets me get units into position without really getting contested. So it's going pretty well. We've basically killed off the 2nd artillery unit, and we're working on this next one. So we got the reinforcements coming in. It's mostly going to be snipers and some cavalry. I think there's a little bit of infantry and some artillery in there. This is another case where you want to actually bring 24 units, even though it just shows 15. You'll end up with an extra 2 units that way. So a little more pausing to get everything in position. But you can see at this point why I wanted to break this video up and do some fast forwarding, because we spent a whole lot of time just not really doing a whole lot, and it's going to get, in some ways, it's going to get worse on the later days. So I try and go for the supply wagon. On open ground it's pretty quick though, so even though my unit's fresh, I'm not able to get it. So I think I'm going to run a little bit farther and run into Union troops. So one of the other options that you can do in this battle is, as you can see, there's not a whole lot down south. So you could actually, if instead of doing what I'm doing, I could have moved a bunch of infantry, and then moved it down to like where the skirmisher unit is, and so I could have basically started attacking that victory point as soon as the phase opened up. You do need some blocking units to stop the free roaming units from McPherson's Ridge and Cemetery, or Oak Ridge, from coming after you, but you could very easily get probably 6 infantry units into position, so before that phase even opens up, you could go after it. Part of this is because a lot of the Union reinforcements in that earlier phase spawn in the city, which is kind of unfortunate. I was initially looking into, can I just bypass all of these positions and flank around, get into the city, and then defend the city from both sides? But units spawn right in the middle of it, so not an option. So here I'm setting up to try and do as much damage to these retreating retreating units as I can. Almost got that artillery unit. So they're starting to fall back from the ridge. They don't always do this. Sometimes, like if those units into the fortifications would stay to this point, I would just flank like I am and then shoot them out of it. But they're deciding to leave, so I'm just going to take the position. It's more of a holding spot than anything else. I don't really attack on the west too much. So I think I moved the supply wagon forward, and the cavalry decided to come in, so I'm getting the supply wagon out of there, and the detached skirmisher unit is now proving useful. I try and send those along with snipers when I can. Basically, they're my fallback card, so if something happens and I get caught, I can sacrifice that unit as opposed to taking losses on much more expensive snipers. So you can also see this is a bit closer to how I would probably normally play if I'm not recording live. I do use pause semi-frequently, especially in these larger later battles. There's just so much going on that if you want to micromanage, you either have to play at half speed, which I don't really enjoy doing, or you need to use pause, which doesn't really bother me, but understandably is not great from a viewing experience. So sometimes those two northern artillery units will come down. I didn't manage to get them down this time. But if you can get rid of those, one or both of those early on, it's really helpful. One thing you actually could do now that it occurs to me is, so the second wave of reinforcements from your first attacking corps spawns in the north. You could put some like 10-pounders or something in there. And hide them in the tree line, and I think you would have range onto the ridge. You can also get detached skirmishers up and around to the north in that little tip of woods, the one that my cavalry is about to run through right now. And from there you would have vision on the artillery that is on the north end of Oak Ridge. So you might actually just be able to bring in, as if you bring in like 2 artillery units there, then you may be able to start shelling those early and maybe get them down, or at least damage them badly before your infantry arrives. It would leave you a little short on infantry on the west side, though. You'd have to swing more of the second corps units over to there. I don't know. It might be worth the trade-off. I'm not sure, but it is a possibility. Trying to start pushing, sort of trying to get an envelopment. I don't push for it too hard just because there's no real way to do it without opening your back to units in the city. And there's sort of a connecting line of fortifications that block where you need to go to actually fully envelop the units. If you bring more infantry, I think it's possible. I think the goal would be is try and keep your infantry units out of sight on the west so that you can push from the east and push everything away from the town. I'm sort of trying for that. Like, I'm moving my cavalry out of the way so that hopefully any unit that breaks decides to go west. I don't think it really works out for me this time, but sometimes I've had stray units that will go out there and retreat that direction. And when that happens, then you can just run them down with your cav. Yeah, overall this is going pretty well. Looks like I took a volley with the snipers, one of the snipers at some point, but those are my cheaper ones, so it's not too big a deal. I think they actually end up taking pretty heavy casualties throughout the battle, but I did pretty well with my scope rifles for a change, so I'm happy with that. And lot of units are coming from the east, so instead of pushing up with my few units in the south, I'm going to have to reorient and start dealing with them. And I'm realizing that I'm not going to get a bunch to route west, so I'm starting to bring my rest of my infantry in and just do what damage I can. We've still got about an hour left, so we got plenty of time to take the victory point. You do have to have the 3 victory points by the time this timer runs out, though. Moving up the artillery since they've basically run out of targets. My goal is going to be to hit some more artillery on Cemetery Hill. I can't actually see one right now. I don't think I noticed at this point. But it's kind of hard because you kind of want the artillery working on the infantry so you take fewer losses there. And it's just hard to get in position to fire at the units on Cemetery Ridge long enough. The vision over there isn't great. You tend to lose sight of it pretty frequently, so it's hard to really do much damage to them. Alright, so we've got one unit that's routing down, and he's going to get eaten up by the cavalry. One other thing you can do to help get vision of the artillery on Cemetery Hill is you can send a skirmisher up and around and hide in the woods on the far eastern board edge. It turns out this time that there is a unit of what I'm presuming are scoped rifle users on the far right side of the town, and I don't notice that in time, and I think I swing units wide around enough, but I don't, and so I never actually get a unit in position over there because I end up getting routed. Or maybe I get one unit. I remember that it doesn't go particularly well over there. Yeah, and I'm not going to try and push the town at all. It's 100% cover the entire way, so and fortifications on top of that sometimes, so it's just not worth the effort in my opinion. I got most of the Union artillery, which I'm very happy about. That's my main goal. And so I'm just going to set up, and any units that want to come out of the town and come after me. I'm not sure how that unit was flanked. Yeah, any units that come out, I'll deal what damage I can. It is definitely beneficial to do a bit more damage to the infantry than I did here. It makes I think the Culp's Hill phases a bit easier, because a lot of these units are what end up guarding those positions. And if you can really do a lot of damage to this first wave of troops, then that can leave gaps in the fortifications at Culp's Hill. So we do alright, and casualties pretty low. So can't really complain. This was a pretty clean run through of this. I've done far worse. Though mainly it's, in a lot of ways, my determining factor for if the phase went well or not is how much of the artillery I get, and sometimes it just doesn't come forward, and so it just all retreats back to the hill and you can't really get to it, so. It'd be nice to get the snipers over a little bit more, but there's still units they can hit from here, so. Not really worth the effort or risk of trying to get them into the trees and hitting those units that are sitting on Cemetery Hill. So I do get that unit in position. You can see how it's going to give me a little bit more spotting. But there's at least 2 to 3 artillery units sitting over there that I can't see. And I think those two, it's either those two or some at the round tops, which I think do the most casualties to my army from any Union unit, except maybe an infantry unit. Yeah, sent some skirmishers forward to try and bait a charge. Didn't really work, but we're basically out of time. So get a few extra shots on the artillery, and that's it.